everybody more than welcome. First, let me tell you a little about Basta. We formulated ourselves because we saw the injustices have been going out there, and our politicians are not listening to our community needs. So this is why we started it, to get the people organized and start picking good politicians that are going to listen to us, that could come and listen to our concerns and our needs. That's been one of our problems in the past, where we don't have good leadership that's going to listen to the community. They come, and once they get elected, you don't see them until 3 years when they go for their next election, and all of a sudden they start doing your streets, cutting your trees, all that stuff they should have been doing year round. So this is what Basta about. Our biggest thing is jobs and education. Jobs, we want to see a good job package put together by our next mayor and council people that are going to be coming this year for elections. In education, our schools are a mess. These charter schools got in. Some are good and some are worse than you could think of. But this is what we're coming from. We want to make our schools better, safer, and education stronger. So this is why La Basta started. You could join us. We meet once a month, and right now we're going to be meeting here. So if you want more information, you can contact me later and talk to me, and I'll be more than glad to invite you to come. Be part of it. What you invest in it, what's going to be invested in the community. We don't get paid. We do it from our hearts, and this is what it's all about. So this is why it's so important that we have an organization to fight for us. We fight for the guy that can't fight for himself. And that's our basic, strongest rule we got right now. So we want to make sure our streets are safe, and our schools are educating our kids, and our families are getting jobs that could feed their families. And that's where we're at right now, and that's why we invited the mayor candidate to come today. We invited Eric, and we also invited Wendy. Eric's excused because, you know what, we did give him a late invitation. Wendy knew about this, so that's something she's going to have to deal with. Because, you know what, I did more than glad to invite her. I talked to her, and she looks like she's going to go Northridge. So we're going to deal with the people we have here, because these are people who want to hear from you, and you want to hear from them. This is what it's all about. And this is how basically how it's going to go. We're going to give them about 3 minutes to introduce themselves, tell you what they're going to be doing for the community in the future, what their vision is, and let them take it from there. And then we're going to have Art Camarillo, Glassell Park leader, also Neighborhood Council founder. He's going to be giving out the 5 basic questions, and listen to what they have to say. And whatever you like up here, that's exactly the ones that project to you what they feel and what they're talking about. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Kevin James, Jan Perry, our council lady, Kevin James, a distinguished radio person, and also Emmanuel, how do you say your last name correctly? Blates. I just want to make sure I do it right. And also Deacon Alexandria. I've met him a few times in South Central when I was down there. Let's give them all a big hand for being up here. Okay, at this time, I'd like to give the mic over to Art Camarillo and let him ask the questions, but first, they're going to go one by one, tell you in 3 minutes what they want to do as mayor, what their vision is. So here we go. We're going to start with Kevin James.
Thank you, Art, George. Thank you to the East Los Angeles Chamber and to Basta for putting this together. I also want to thank, I know it takes a lot of effort, and thank all of you for coming out and participating in this discussion. I also want to thank my fellow candidates that have shown up tonight. It's important to be a part of this discussion. You know, I'm 49 years old. I moved to Los Angeles over 25 years ago. It was in May of 1987. Hard to believe it's been that long, but when I came because Los Angeles was the land of opportunity. It was a land of opportunity, not just in our country, but around the world. Young people were coming to Los Angeles from all over the country, indeed from all over the world, for opportunity that we just don't seem to have anymore. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for mayor. We all know what a great city Los Angeles can be. And I want you all to join me in making Los Angeles great again. I've worked in the private sector for the most of my time in Los Angeles. I've been a lawyer in LA for many years. I was a federal prosecutor here in Los Angeles. As it was mentioned, I was a broadcaster covering the city, a local broadcaster for the better part of a decade, listening to Angelenos. I've also been the chairman of one of the largest local charities in Los Angeles, and we come in at a time now where our city faces many crises. We have an employment crisis. We have a budget crisis. The chief administrative officer in the city said that we are on the verge of bankruptcy. We have an infrastructure crisis. We see water mains, sinkholes popping up all over the city. Our roads are the second worst roads in the nation, according to federal highway data. We have an education crisis. You already heard a bit about that tonight. We also have a corruption crisis. We live in the second most corrupt region in the nation. We have a local government that is known for its corruption. We have a city council that makes almost $200,000 a year each. They are the highest paid city council in the country. We have a transportation crisis with congestion. We now are starting to see crime rates rise throughout our city because of AB 109 and what is called prison realignment. It's the early release. So we find ourselves in this crisis. And I remind you that we cannot solve the problems that we face today with the same level of thinking that got us there. It is going to take new leadership. So visit my website, kevinjamesformayor.com. You will find in much more time than I have in this brief opening tonight. You'll find many issues, substantive issues, my ideas, my thoughts. We want your feedback as well. And join me. Join my campaign in making Los Angeles great again. You have an alternative in this race. There is a new choice. We don't have to go with the same level of thinking that have gotten us to the crises that we live in today. So join me in making Los Angeles great again, and thank you to all of you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jan Perry, and I want to be your next mayor. Yes. I want to work with you, and I want you to work with me, and I want you to help me as we build a city that is fair and equitable for everyone's family, where we can raise our children and raise our grandchildren, that we have choices for housing at all income levels, job opportunities for people at all skill levels, educational opportunities and choices for parents on how they want to educate their children, and transportation options. If you want to know what kind of mayor I would be, let me tell you what I've done in 2 minutes. Over the last 11 years, I have been a strategic job creator in making sure that we had catalytic development in downtown Los Angeles, and to link through project labor agreements and nonprofits, social service providers, to be able to put over 90,000 people back to work. In the last 11 years, I have been able to build 5,000 units of housing. Some of it has been housing for people who are mentally ill and formerly homeless. Some of it has been housing for women, single women, raising their children, victims of domestic violence. And now I'm about to open a project for grandparents raising their grandchildren, the fastest growing demographic in this country over the last decade, because the children have lost their jobs and they bring their kids back home to be raised by the grandparents. But what I think is really important as we build for now and we build for the future is to build a transportation system so that we will have a city where we do not have to rely on a car 100% of the time. That's why I was so excited to be the former chairwoman of the Exposition Line Authority and to finish the first 8.6 miles of the Exposition Line, which will ultimately connect us Gold Line, Blue Line, Red Line, all the way through downtown over to the west side, so that people can finally live where they want to live, work where they want to work, and they won't need a car to get there. That's what we need for ourselves now, and that's what we need for our children and grandchildren. And then lastly, a greater focus on middle school and co-location of schools with charter schools so that parents have choices and that everyone's child has the right to be educated, and if they so choose, to get a 4-year education in college. Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo están? Bien, bien. Gracias por estar aquí. Es importantísimo que nos reunamos haciendo esos tipos de foros. Importantísimo que estemos involucrados en esta campaña, en esta elección, en cualquier campaña. I want to thank Basta, the East LA Chamber of Commerce, for putting this together. I'm here because the next mayor of Los Angeles needs to understand that the 12+% unemployment rate is more than just a number. It represents hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of families who are worrying and wondering if they're going to be able to pay the rent next month. I have felt that. I'm an Angelino who grew up on the east side. I'm someone who's been taught to stand for what I believe in. And I'm someone who also sees the potential of this great city. Look, my sister and I grew up with not much. But what we did have was a strong woman, an immigrant mother from Mexico who came across the border and who knew that giving up was not an option. If it meant that we had to sell clothes and candies and go downtown and bring stuff to the east side to sell it in the neighborhood, so be it. We had to do it. If it meant staying up late trying to learn English to try to get a better job, she did it. That's the attitude that the next mayor of Los Angeles needs. It's someone who will do whatever it takes. Someone will do whatever it takes to make LA better. My candidacy is not about politics or my career. My candidacy is about public service. At the end of the day, we need to engage, inspire people, and make sure that everyone is involved in making LA better together. I had a basketball coach at Wilson High School who taught me a couple things. One thing that has always stayed with me, he says, don't sit on the fence. Pick a side and stand for what you believe in. We have a choice this election. We have a choice this election not to just go with the herd. We have a choice to stand up, to stand for what we believe in, and pick someone who's going to fight for us, who understands the inner city streets, who understands the struggles that right now people are hurting. And someone that can couple that with understanding the economy at the highest level and put together a vision for the future. I ask you to stand with me to get off the fence, join me in re-energizing LA together. Thank you.
My name is S.
Whoa, microphone. We need the microphone.
I don't think so. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. My name is S. Deacon Alexander. When you go home tonight, just push that up and you find out a lot about me. But you know, I started thinking about running for mayor because I wanted to run against the corruption in the city of Los Angeles, starting at the city council level. My story and my desire and my fight begins when I defended 300 immigrant farmers who are going to be expelled and run off of the South Central Farm, and a documentary, an Academy Award documentary called The Garden was filmed, and I am the person that's in that documentary. And in that documentary, it explains beyond a shadow of a doubt that the lady sitting behind me is one of the most corrupt individuals in the entire United States of America. She's corrupt for a number of reasons. And that's why I'm here tonight, not to win. You know, folks are not going to vote for me. I do hope, though, however, I am able to get on the ballot. That's going to cost about $1,500 and about $2,600.
I'm sorry, brother, but we're not going to allow that here. If you want to
You
say
didn't
something.
tell me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, you didn't tell me
We didn't.
that I could not.
We're not going to do that here.
Okay, all right. That's
You
the
talk
point.
about what you're going to do, not about somebody else.
Okay, what I'm saying is what I am going to do is expose corruption. The point of my candidacy is to expose corruption as I see it. And starting at the local level, starting at the city. And listen, I live exactly 6 minutes from Boyle Heights. I live in Skid Row. And to be quite honest with you, as I look back in my back, I'm probably the only candidate who would represent the people of Boyle Heights. Because the people behind me, and that's what I want to talk about, is that they're wedded to development. And I would hope that the questions that you ask go to the point well, who are you for? Are you for developers? Or are you for the people of Skid Row?
Your time's up, Deacon. Time's up.
Okay. No.
Half a minute. Half time. I'm sorry. Half time.
First of all, let's be clear about what a candidate's forum is. The candidate's forum are those individuals who file papers, and that won't even happen until November. So by and large, I think that we have to kind of loosen up. Don't be so afraid of the bosses behind this, and let's begin to speak the truth on power to the people. Thank you so much.
Let me just say something. I just want to let you guys all know, please, be as polite and honorable for these mayor candidates coming to our community. Let's show good hospitality. Let's show a little love that we respect them even coming to our communities. That goes for all of them. So please, if you got anything negative to say, don't bring it here. We want to hear positive. That's what this whole thing's about. Thank you.
You don't want to hear personal attacks. Just give us your opinion, okay?
Sorry?
No personal attacks, just give us your opinion. Okay, the first question that...
Facts, please.
Do you have a solution right now to reduce the city deficit? Do you have a solution to reduce the city deficit and working with labor unions and some retirement city reform? Pension reform. The question was your solution to reduce the city deficit, and how to work with organized labor, and if they have any plans for city retirement reform.
How much time do we have?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Oh, 3 minutes. Okay. I'm a radio host. I'm used to speaking in like 10-minute segments, and then I thought it was going to be a minute. So just make sure so I have it clear. Reducing the deficit, working with the city's unions, and pension reform. 3 minutes on those very important issues. First of all, reducing the deficit in the city of Los Angeles. We have been living with multi-hundred-million-dollar deficits now for a number of years. I always say there are two words that I will use when I talk about reform that my opponents are afraid to often use. And that word is salary and pensions. We must have salary reform for the city of Los Angeles. We must have pension reform in Los Angeles. This is not an ideological issue. This is not an issue divided by the parties. It's an actuarial issue. It's an issue that is related specifically to the numbers. If we don't have the money in our city coffers to pay our city employees, we cannot provide services. The existing establishment in City Hall has given the new mayor a new level, a new type of leverage to renegotiate with our city employees. I don't want any employees of our city to lose their pensions. The new type of leverage is bankruptcy. The chief administrative officer of the city has said that we are on the verge of bankruptcy. He said that in April to the LA Times. Just a few weeks ago, Mayor Villaraigosa said, we're not going to go into bankruptcy on my watch. Well, his watch ends in just a few months. Bankruptcy doesn't happen overnight. We must renegotiate our contracts with our city unions, and that is why my candidacy is unique. I'm the only lawyer in the field. You know, they tell you, oh, don't say you're a lawyer, it's bad on the ballot. Lawyer bad, prosecutor good. You need a lawyer who's been involved for a quarter century in high-stakes settlement negotiations like I have, that is an outsider, that is not bought and paid for by the special interest, to step in and represent the people so that the people's priorities step up first. Pension reform. We absolutely must, and Steve Lopez did a feature piece on me recently in the LA Times when he was absolutely right. When I talked about pension reform, I talked about the fact that we have to have givebacks from existing pension recipients. And I know when you see what happened in San Diego and San Jose with pension reform, she says I've got half time. Let me take for 2020 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Art. Art, you're rough, man. That's our drill sergeant, Art Polito. With pension reform, and there was news just yesterday that there is a movement from the business community to get pension reform in the city of Los Angeles. If we don't have it, they could push us into bankruptcy, and that is not good for the city. We do not want to go there. It is not good for business. And many people think that the train has already left the station. I don't think it has. But what has happened is we've gotten to the brink where we must have renegotiation. People talk about what the courts will do. This lawyer will fight for the people to provide citizens, all right, the services that we need. My opponents have demonstrated they don't have the guts, really, at least the city hallers, do not have the guts to take the issue to court like will happen in San Diego and San Jose. I guarantee you there's not a judge in California that's going to tell us that we have to pay our pension recipients before we provide police and fire in the city of Los Angeles. If that judge does, it'll be the end of their career. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a chance to also answer. To answer the same.
Again, the three parts are pension reform, budget deficit, and third one?
And organized labor.
Okay. One of the best ways, one of the strongest ways the next mayor can help the city recover is to bring in net new revenue. We are poised to commence on some transformative opportunities if we are fortunate enough to get a stadium here in Los Angeles, and we're fortunate enough to modernize our convention center. We have the potential to bring in 23,000 net new jobs almost immediately once the project is completed. That means new sales revenue, new property tax revenue, and people being employed again, spending money in the local economy, and generating all that comes from that. We have to hold the line and reduce our expenditures. We have to continue to increase our collections, but the big elephant in the room is pension reform. And while we have done things on an incremental basis over the last several years, and while we have an obligation under the charter to provide police and fire service, which is 70% of our city budget off the top, non-negotiable, we have to look to the future. Now, it's easy to look and talk about pension reform for people who have not been hired yet. That's the easy part. Nobody will get mad at you about that because they're not there yet. But what's important is when we get beyond that, for the people who have their pensions now, we have to have a system that has long-term sustainability so the people who are getting their pensions now will not look up one day and see that they are gone, that our bond ratings have dropped, that we can no longer get money from the bond companies because our bond ratings are so low, to be able to run our city and to continue to provide the basic services. So I say this to say we are in this together. We have to engage in reform. We do not have a choice. Bankruptcy is not a good option. If we have to increase the age that people qualify for retirement and take a lower percentage of what they earned over the course of their career, then that may be what it has to be. And if we have to continue to negotiate with all of the unions, each union should be treated the same. Some units are treated differently than others, and that creates an imbalance.
It's like a hazard here to speak. Pension reform. Just this year, we had $200 million budget deficit. Okay? There's a structural deficit in our budget that is not going to be addressed by new revenue opportunities. It's just not. It's just a fact. For the last 30 years, the return on pension plans has been half what the city assumed. Those are false projections, false promises. These are really, really tough decisions that someone needs to take, and they should take it today. Now, what the mayor is trying to do is great. He's a good negotiator. But at the end of the day, when the rubber hits the road, the pension fund liabilities actually continue to increase. Okay? We cannot wait for the city council to do anything. We need to take it to the ballot box. San Jose is one example. San Jose was able to, by 70%, pass an initiative that required city employees to contribute more to their pension funds. That's one example. We need to look at all options. All options are on the table. Now, I said I stand for what I believe in. I'm not here to be the most popular politician. I'm here because the city needs leadership. And if we do need to declare bankruptcy, and I gotta do it on day one, taking the mayor's office, and I'm a one-term mayor, so be it. Someone's gotta do it. This election is not about my political career, it's about the city. And unless you actually can get to that level, you're not gonna renegotiate any pension fund liabilities. We need higher contributions. We need to make sure that the age is raised for retirement. People are living longer. It's just a fact of life. With technology advancement, that's just the way it is. And again, very difficult decisions. I'm not afraid to make them. That's why I'm coming before you to run for mayor, because I have no special interest behind me. I'm someone that's going to be willing to make those decisions when they're needed. And again, if I got to do it on day one, we got to do it. And then we got to look forward and start anew. We're in a rut, and we're going to continue being in a rut, and we're going to continue kicking the can down the road. That's unacceptable, and we need to hold all of our leaders accountable. Thank you.
Well, let's start with the Safer Cities Initiative. The Safer Cities Initiative was $30 million that was given to the Los Angeles Police Department to over-police Skid Row.
Excuse me, what's going on?
Well, it's his turn.
Well, you need to introduce yourself, please, sir.
Oh, my name is S. Deacon Alexander. I'm a candidate from here. And I thought I did that when I first got up. Okay, now, Safer Cities Initiative was $30 million that came out of our general coffers and went into the hands of the police department to put another 150 cops down there in Skid Row. We didn't need as many as we had. We certainly didn't need the over-policing that we have had in Skid Row. All they're doing is harassing people down there, giving out tickets for no reason, and I assure you that the people behind me and also the people upstairs voted and continuously vote to send our money to the Safer Cities Initiative. That's $30 million, that's a lot of money. We could have saved it. But what about the money that was given to the NFL to build that stadium? That was $2 million that was given to the NFL as opposed to putting affordable housing. It was taken out of our city. But that is going on all throughout the city. People are not aware of the fact that our city council people, our mayor, are endorsing giving developers our money. Now, if we were to stop doing that, I assure you, this attack on the unions wouldn't even be necessary. I am in favor of the unions. I'm in favor of them getting what they can. And when they tend to overreach, then it's time for us to bring them into our corner. I'm not going to be one of these people that are really wishy. I am a pro-union guy. I was born in the union, and I'm with the union. And don't get me wrong. There are some problems with the corruption even there too. But I'm not going to, switch pro-development anti-union. There is something wrong with that card. There is something wrong with the fact that our people get out of poverty through the union wage, to the Davis-Bacon wage, to the prevailing wage. That's how we make it out of this body. That is how we make it out of our ghetto. That's how we get into the so-called working class. It's through union work. I would like to bring it to your attention again. Safer Cities Initiative, and let's stop giving our money to the developers.
The next question is, do you have a plan to retain business in Los Angeles, and also how we're going to attract new business to LA?
I'm going to let somebody else go first this time.
Okay.
Variety in this show.
So the question is, how do we plan to attract new business and retain business? Well, we're not gonna tax our way out of this recession. We're gonna have to build our way out of this recession. And the way to build our way out of this recession is to focus on jobs, jobs, and more jobs. And that's keeping the jobs we have here. One of the things we have done is a business tax holiday to give a tax break to the businesses that are here now, but you've got to do something to bring in new businesses. So we're debating now whether or not to eliminate the gross receipts tax or to modify our outmoded tax system so that new businesses will look at Los Angeles and say, Los Angeles is competitive with other cities. I can go there, I can start a business, I can find a streamlined approach to opening my business. I find a welcome, not a hostile business environment. It's a decent place to come here and to make a living. And then businesses come in, they put people to work, and then again, you start generating more and more revenue back into the city's general fund so we can continue to provide the services. So my focus is bringing in new jobs, because that is the best way for us to pull ourselves out of the recession. That is why I'm so excited about the 2 new hotels that are being built on the north side of Olympic. I am excited at the prospect of having another type of approach to running the convention center that will be more profitable, more lucrative, bring in more business worldwide, so that we can move from being 15th in the country in convention and tourism business to number 5 in the country, and that we can compete with cities like Chicago, like Las Vegas, and get more of that business here and put more of our people back to work.
Thank you.
First of all, I refuse to put the economic revitalization of the city of Los Angeles on the back of a football stadium in downtown Los Angeles. Especially when the NFL has not even given us a team yet. Now, I have published in the Huffington Post my convention center plan, and the current AEG plan for a stadium right there at the I-10 and the 110 forever limits the convention center space to keep us in second-tier status. My plan that is published in the Huffington Post, complete with visuals, takes it to 1 million+ square feet. Number 2, on day 1, and this is also at my website at kevinjamesformayor.com under early priorities, you will see my business improvement package. I've published this information online publicly as well. I will eliminate the gross receipts tax, not eliminate the business tax, but eliminate the gross receipts tax. For people that may not own a business, you may not know, the gross receipts means that they take money off the top of your business. I always say there's 2 groups that get away, it seems to me, with taking money off the top: the city of Los Angeles and the mafia. Why do we continue to allow that? So we end the gross receipts method of calculating the business tax, and we find a new way, like our neighbors do it. This business about a business tax holiday, it sounds attractive when you hear elected officials. They sound like they're being business friendly. What do you think a business tax holiday for new business does? If you give a business tax holiday of our very high tax rates to new businesses, what does it do to the existing business? It punishes them. A business tax holiday is nothing but a gimmick to get a headline. What you want to do is lower the business tax burden across the board, fairly and equitably for all businesses in the city. We need jobs. That's how we get them. Allow private business to not only stay in Los Angeles, but new businesses to come to Los Angeles. And something else that we must do that's also on my website, we have to stream the permitting process in Los Angeles. If you are a small business, you cannot get through City Hall without some sort of, without either you're paying a ton of money to get through the process, or you have to hire lobbyists to get through the process. It can't take 8 months, 10 months, 15 months to open a new restaurant in the city. Who can afford to be without their business for that long? They will leave and go elsewhere. So my business improvement package is elimination of the gross receipts tax. We recalculate the way we calculate the business tax. We streamline permitting, and I'll tell you something else. If the city council won't do it, I will use my 10 years of experience in the media, on the radio, to take it to the voters. Because I guarantee you, if the city council won't give us business tax reform, the people will. Thank you.
How many people remember Jarvis, Howard Jarvis, or the Jarvis Proposition? Remember that big fight? Proposition 13. Remember that? Well, that's the beginning of this discussion. He came up with this great plan where the business owners, the property folks, they just went out and paying more taxes. And that's exactly where we've been left with in the city of Los Angeles. And that's one of the reasons why we all, too, are on the verge of bankruptcy. Let me tell you something. I am for the reestablishment of Proposition 13, minus the bad things. for example, the homeowner issue. I am for the businesses that don't pay taxes now start paying some, because they were eliminated under Howard Jarvis and Dan. But I am saying, and my Green Party is very, very famous on this question of taxation. We believe you should tax the rich. We should believe, because by taxing the rich, then we begin to put more money into our city coffers, and then we can be able to create jobs. So that's a fundamental difference. It's a fundamental difference. Mine is more socialist oriented, his is more 1% oriented. And that's a difference. Nothing wrong about spelling it out. That's why I want to remain on the platform to say exactly what we're talking about. We have one individual here, or two individuals here, or three individuals who are about the business of making the 1% even richer. And you got the one guy here who represents the Boyle Heights community, the other communities like that. People report and say, why not tax the rich? They need some taxes. And as far as I'm concerned, I would like to continue to do that. Now, in my 30 seconds left, I'm going to leave this stage early. Think about me and help me come back and raise that $1,000 that's necessary to get me on the ballot. Thank you.
So the question was about businesses. I want to reframe the question because I frankly don't care if there are more businesses or less businesses. What I care is about jobs. I care about job creation. If it's only the businesses that are currently in LA and they grow and they create more jobs, I'm cool with that. I'm fine. Okay? Now, what I'm here to share is to say that of all the candidates in this election, I am the best equipped to deal with this job creation issue. I'm going to split it up in a few ways. Our businesses need to compete and grow. It's what I did as a consultant for some of the largest companies in the world, as well as small companies. We need a more robust infrastructure investment plan to make sure that goods can move, that businesses are more efficient. That's what I did in the private sector, is figure out how to attract financing infrastructure assets. We have some of the most attractive assets in the world. Investors from all over the world are trying to invest in LA. But that means we ourselves can invest in LA. Number three, if there are industries that are fast growing, if there are companies that are creating jobs, then I want those to come to LA. It's not just about bringing new businesses to LA, it's about bringing businesses that are innovative. And those industries are healthcare and anything that is data-driven. I work at a technology company as a technology executive, the chief strategy officer for a company. I work on this day in, day out with software engineers, customer service folks, and growing a company that's employing people every week. This is my bread and butter. It's what I do. Now I'll close it with an initiative that I worked on while I was in the Treasury Department in the White House. It's called the Skills for America, Skills for the Future of America. It's now taken by the Aspen Institute, and what it does is that it better coordinates the existing private sector with the community colleges and all the other public and agencies. If we can get better coordination, then we address the skills mismatch in our city and across the country. Because it's not about new businesses, it's about jobs. And there actually are jobs in LA, but we're not trained, we're not ready for them. So we need to focus on the training components. I'm not about the bringing the business, I'm focusing on the training components. That's what the mayor needs to focus on, because our people here want to work. They either are multi-generation or came to this country recently, they want to work. We have the work ethic. We just need the training component, and the jobs are there. I'm going to be laser focused on that because I've worked on that in the private sector as a consultant, I've worked on it as a financier, I'm working on it as a technology executive, and I've worked on it as a policy level at the highest levels. Now I'll close with this. Our leaders, and not just in City Hall, all over the country, we keep on thinking of kind of these one project, these big projects that we think are about job creation. Jobs need to be created in every region, every neighborhood in this city. What I will be doing is rolling out a community, neighborhood-specific economic development plan for every part of the city to make sure jobs are created in these neighborhoods on the east side and South LA, in the areas that need it the most. That's what I'm bringing to the table. Thank you.
The next question that the community wanted to find out is if you're familiar with the current mayor, the PLAS program, where he took over some of the schools in the city, especially in Boyle Heights. It has proven that in Boyle Heights has been a failure over the past 4 years. Do you have any solution to do away with that program or how to improve it? The PLAS program is under the mayor's office on education. Partnership, yeah. And, you know, it has failed in our community here. And people want to know if you have any plans to do away with it or to improve it.
This one's an easy one for me. I grew up, I went to Wilson High School in a public school, and that program isn't necessary when I'm the next mayor. We're not going to have it. So I could stop my answer there. But what I will say is, look, I was the mayor's personal assistant. Antonio Villaraigosa, I heard every phone conversation he did. I was with him day in, day out. Now, I'm not here to bash on the mayor and his decisions.
It's okay.
I love the fact that there was a spotlight on education, and that's a good thing. Now, what he learned, and what we need to learn, is that taking over the school district is not an option. Not an option. In fact, it was proven unconstitutional. And this partnership was just an effort to try to save face. And I'm someone who's willing to say that. Now, what we do need to do is that the mayor needs to focus on the things that the mayor can focus on. And that's outside of the school district. There's 50% of our students in this district who are dropping out or getting pushed out of the school system. It is unacceptable. 66 in some places. I went to Wilson High School. There were nearly 800 folks or more in my 9th grade. And when I graduated as senior class president, there were only 375. Unacceptable. The mayor needs to focus, laser focus, on that part of the population. We need to make sure that they're trained and either back in the educational system or contributing to society one way or another. That's what the mayor needs to focus on. And we need to make sure that we're building learning communities, that schools are community service centers, that there's no silos, that the school district is working with the city hand in hand to make sure that we're delivering services in the best way possible. Let's get out of the power struggle. It's not about I take over what or who runs what. It's about the kids. It's about the future of the city. It's about the economy. It's about job creation. It's about making sure that our kids are prepared like I was in LA public schools and go through the system and can come back to this neighborhood and not be afraid and say, I'm going to plant myself back in this neighborhood and create jobs and do everything I can so that that every kid has an opportunity to succeed. We have to be angry about this. It is sad what is going on. And I ask you to join me as I do this campaign and advance these issues. I know we have a lot of activists in the room that are doing this already. I'm going to continue doing it, and when I'm in the mayor's office, I'm going to make sure that we have specific plans for every region. I'll opine on school district matters, but at the end of the day, I want to be laser focused on our communities. So thank you.
So we look back over the last decade, Mayor Reardon opened the door on being a mayor who was about education. Mayor Villaraigosa continued that, and he started his partnership schools. And they may have produced mixed results, but I still think it was good that the mayors took a stand, and I think as next mayor, I would take a stand and continue that tradition. I've worked with the Los Angeles Unified School District and a number of charter school organizations since 2001 all over South Los Angeles. And my focus is, what meets the needs of the children and their families. The best thing that we can do for children and their families is to give parents as many choices as possible for their neighborhood schools so that their children can have their needs met. It has been a pleasure to work with LAUSD to locate more than 30 new schools in South LA in my area in the last 10 years. So you can finally see parents walking their children to school in the morning, walking to pick them up at night, participating in activities in the school so that the parents are more engaged than they ever were before because they don't have to put their children on a bus 2 hours a day to go somewhere else to get an education. So we bring the education back into the neighborhoods. My particular focus is middle school children. We've done better on K through 5, and for parents who still have children in school, you know that the API scores have slowly crept up over the last 10 years, but where we begin to level off and drop back down again is in middle school. There is no provision either in LAUSD, no hybrid model to meet the needs of children as they go from middle school and make that transition into high school, where we really begin to lose them. That is an opportunity for the mayor and as your mayor to create strong public-private partnerships to augment what the Los Angeles Unified School District is lacking to provide the support to children for wraparound services for children and their families so that they can enjoy more success once they get through middle school and into high school. Thank you.
Are we familiar with Green Dot?
Yes.
Okay. Before I can even begin to answer that question, I would like to know what the feeling of the community is with regard to privatization of our education system. Are we for it or are we against it?
We're against it.
We're against the private, turning our schools into private care. And some of us are for it, and some of us are against it. Because when we look at this whole mess, and we are in an absolute total mess, it's a combination of trying to privatize our schools and the mayor literally taking them over. The question is, what is best for us? And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to try to say that I have the answer, because we are in a desperate situation in terms of public education. Public education in terms of some of our leaders doesn't need to be public anymore. We need to turn it into private hands. We need to turn it where companies actually begin to run our schools. I don't know, because in Watts, the schools started actually doing better under private care. Actually, I was there, I watched it. I watched the grade scores go up, I watched the violence go down. They actually took over the school. They actually took care of business. I mean, this is proof positive in this instance. I was at Fremont and the rest of them. They're actually doing a pretty good job. Now, the union is gone, and I'm a union man, I didn't like that. A lot of the decisions that the parents thought they may have had, they don't have, the companies run those schools. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? I don't know. The proof is in the making. Or is it in the eating? That's the whole point. And I think in this regard, you know, my decisions are based on a situation that we are in a basic crisis. And I don't think there's any real simple answer. But I do know this. The continuation of the same old policies are not going to work.
Well, we could have a 30-minute dialogue on education. I grew up my entire life going through public schools. My mother was a public school teacher. She taught algebra. But every time I hear a discussion about education, I remember for how many years we've heard the same things over and over again. But ladies and gentlemen, we still aren't graduating half our kids. You would think that just talking about good education and our kids was enough. But apparently it's not, because we've been failing over and over and over again. So how about this? It's now an economic issue. How can we keep jobs in our community? How can we attract new business to our community when we don't have a school system that the employees, future employees, are comfortable putting their kids into? We can't. So we have to do a lot of things. We have a disconnect with the LAUSD. I sat with the superintendent for 45 minutes a few weeks back, and he still had his parcel tax idea on the ballot. He wanted to know, because I've been on the air on the radio waves for many years in Los Angeles, what I thought the public would do with it. And I told him, I said, Superintendent Daisy, there's a disconnect in the public's mind. When you spend $500 million with a B on one high school, and then you can't afford to pay for the books for the students to learn inside the high school, you're not going to get your parcel tax. When you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the facade of the downtown art complex and you can't pay for finger paints for the kids on the inside, you're not getting results. So we have to do something different. I would create an education information officer inside the mayor's office. I also would have an education liaison that would go to all of the LAUSD meetings. The education information officer is critical because parents need to come. They need somewhere that they can come to get information, to understand what's going on. Lydia Grant, who's with me here tonight, is very well known in the education arena because she was one of the early pioneers of the parent revolution and parent trigger legislation. I supported that. I was one of their very first media interviews to get the parent trigger legislation passed. Anything that incentivizes parents to get involved in their education is a step in the right direction. I was recently honored to be the keynote speaker at the Vanguard Adult Center in East LA recently because the parents were graduating through a program that teaches them how to be more involved with their students, their elementary school students, when they're starting in the first grade. And we need to have parents more involved. Let's start there. Something else that we've gotten away from in the LAUSD, vocational education. We're being told, constantly being told, that every kid has to be college bound. I went to a public school, one of my best buddies, who's a very successful construction owner in Texas, and he never did well in school, but he had wood shop to go to. And because he had wood shop to go to, a vocational education, he still felt good about himself to study math, history, English, even though his grades might not have been as well. We have to focus on vocational education, and we cannot cut our budgets to adult education either.
And this really goes back to how Doug started out this. This has to do with public education. This is something that really brings the community together, solidifies what our values are. And that's what's at stake here. And I think that's why sometimes I frustrate you and some of my colleagues on the board when I keep talking about these schools that no one else is focusing on, because these kids deserve lead-free water and play yards and computer equipment just like anyone else who goes to school in LAUSD.
Right to that point about the kindness of strangers with copy paper, we have a question about outside of government funding. What efforts are being made by LAUSD through the private sector? I know you worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Superintendent Daisy. Well, what about getting the LA and California private sector involved in a direct way for LAUSD?
So we just launched and formed the LA Fund for Public Education, and there are some amazing people who have chosen to be on that board, which I am deeply grateful for. Our goal is 250